Jordan Peterson had an emotional moment in his latest interview with Piers Morgan. The last time I saw Jordan Peterson get this emotional was actually when he was talking about the possibility of Christianity actually being true and what that would imply for all of humanity. So on the back of him overcoming his struggle with prescription drugs and on the heels of a new book, this conversation says a lot about where Jordan Peterson is and the attacks he continues to receive from the general public. So on this video, we'll look at the exact moment that led to Jordan Peterson being this vulnerable and one of the things that he said that I think can speak to many Christians.
Ruslan.
We're gonna jump right into this Piers Morgan interview and where Jordan Peterson gets rather emotional. I'll give you guys some of the backstory and a practical tie-in, I think, that a lot of us can have with regards to how we operate in some of these controversial spaces. So this was from a longer interview that was, I believe, about an hour long, and this is towards the end of the interview. And they discussed all kinds of different topics, but they landed on Jordan Peterson being framed in a not so flattering way by a big movie that's about to come out from Hollywood. Check this out.
I've got to wrap it up. I don't want to, but I have to. I want to ask you just quickly, the film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
So she has a movie coming out. There's a character, Olivia Wilde has a movie coming out, and it's like about old-fashioned kind of gender roles, so on and so forth. And there's a character there that she said was inspired by Jordan Peterson and called him the incel god. Now, that's not, incel isn't the most flattering term for the community of men who there's growing, and a lot of them are involuntarily celibate. And then to attach them with Jordan Peterson being their quote-unquote hero as someone that they glean their worldview from, I think is a bit incongruent, but his answer here kind of surprised me.
Sure, why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is.
So he says sure and owns that he's this online community's hero. And this is where he gets emotional because he said, I'm speaking to disaffected young men. Okay, listen.
I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about it.
Well, God, you know, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that.
So, very interesting in the way that he views this. And I think in a way that we view this on a macro scale. And this is what I mean. When we think of marginalized, when we think of people that are hurting, when we think of people that may need representation, when we think of people that may need resource, seldom do we think about men. Seldom do we think about men that is a growing community of them that are socially awkward, that don't quite understand what it would make them better, more capable, more solid men so that they can be attractive to women. And we've had the conversation on the channel about the church and men. I just had it with Alan Parr and my brother John McCrae. I'll be sure to put that over here so you guys go watch that conversation. But he sees this as, hey, I'm speaking for and speaking to a group that isn't accurately represented or cared for. They're kind of just piled on and dismissed and laughed at. And he says, I thought we were supposed to speak for these folks. Like, I thought we're supposed to help people. He speaks predominantly towards a huge group of men, but he's getting mocked and ridiculed for that, right? And that's an interesting tension for him to be in. And so I think of our own lives, and I think of the people that we're called to impact and affect as followers of Jesus. Who are we called to? Are we called just to the pleasant people? Are we called just to the people who have higher status and are encouraged and engaged by society? Or are we sometimes encouraged and speak to the sinners, to the people that people don't care about? Jesus was around all kinds of questionable people, and that was always like an asterisk on his reputation with regards to this. So I want to jump back into this conversation and something else he reveals here.
Olivia Wilde. It stung you, didn't it? I saw the
Oh,
reaction.
by that time, you know, that as far as critiques go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, you know, magical super Nazi.
That's wild, by the way, that they made him the magical super Nazi. I've listened to enough of Jordan Peterson to know it ain't the most fair. There's some things I disagree with him on, but that's a stretch.
That was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that. So when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for a movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond to it with some degree of humor, which...
So they responded with humor. They didn't even take this personally. It was the deeper issue that hurts him isn't the representation. You can't go any more insidious than calling somebody what they called him in the other movie.
Then people completely misunderstood. I said I hope that, you know, that if I had to be played by someone, I think it's Chris Wilde, is that he's a very good-looking man, and so that seems all right, you know. And then I said something like, I hope he gets my fashion style choice right when he plays me. And it was a joke. All that was a joke.
I mean, you've been so controlled today, and yet in that brief moment, you got very emotional. Why?
It's really something to see constantly how many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word. Mm-hmm. And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. You know, give credit where credit is due. And to say, you're a net force for good if you want to be.
So he's heartbroken because he's saying it's crazy how many people are hurting and how much words of encouragement, words of affirmation can do to make them turn a corner in their life. And he's seeing this firsthand. He shares these stories about these folks coming to him at his events, folks that society has kind of forgotten about, even though that in many of the views of what's going on socially, these are the same folks that would be viewed as the hierarchy of society, as privileged, as all these different things. Yet these folks are hurting. Yet these folks are their life expectancy is getting lower. They're self-deleting themselves at alarmingly increasing rates. And he's saying it's crazy to think about how many of us can help by just being encouraging and being a net force for good.
Do you believe you're a net force for good?
And Pierce, this is a brilliant question on Pierce Morgan's part. Do you believe that you're a net force for good?
Net, yes. In all the details, probably not. You know, no one's perfect. So people make their mistakes as they stumble uphill.
That's a gem. People make their mistakes as they stumble uphill. So my question for us, those of us that are followers of Jesus, those of us that understand that we actually have the antidote. We actually have the good news. We actually have the hope that the world is really looking for. Not on a surface, lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life level where you just want to gratify yourself, but on a deeper level where Jesus is the answer to a lot of the questions. How are we with exhibiting this truth? Are we willing to share and be a net positive for good, even if we're going to fall short, even if we're going to drop the ball, even if when we get into the details, it may not always be as clean and as perfect. And this last part that he says, to me, I think really stands out. I'm going to pull this back one more time and listen to what he says.
In all the details, probably not. You know, no one's perfect. So people make their mistakes as they stumble uphill.
People make their mistakes as they stumble uphill. Are you willing to risk being a communicator of God's truth and stumble uphill? Are you willing to risk speaking to and speaking for and speaking truth in areas that maybe aren't politically correct, in areas that maybe aren't socially acceptable. And as you're doing that, you're risking, and you may not get everything perfect. You may get some backlash. You may get some hate. See, I rather take risk and sometimes fall and make mistakes than to never risk and never have the positive impact and the godly impact that I'm hoping to have on society. And I think Jordan Peterson is exhibiting that. He's working through that publicly. But the undergirding of this entire conversation of speaking to people who are often overlooked and being encouraging so that we could be a net positive for God. I don't know who else should be doing this more than followers of Jesus. People who have the antidote, people who are willing to speak. And so as you consider these things and as you're looking at your own life, as you're looking at the access you have to different types of people, are you willing to speak positive words that are both full of grace and full of truth? I want to hear from you guys in the comments section. And if you guys want to see my previous video where Jordan Peterson talks about Christianity, I'll be sure to pin that over here. It's very fascinating. I'll see you guys over there, all right? Peace.